yourself. So I'm chatting today to Gordon Ellis-Brown, who we've chatted before, haven't we, about Newlyn, and you were really helpful about Newlyn. So well, how would you describe yourself? As an artist, a painter, or what would you, because you've got a lot of varied work going on.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I would describe myself as an outside observer sometimes from another planet.
Okay.
You
I'm
know?
sure you'll fit in with this blog.
I'm a photographer at heart. I just love imagery of any description, and now I combine paint with images and photography, and other media as well. So I bring the two together to create a different dynamic, and that could be a dynamic that's between something that's huge and tiny, or it could be putting two things together that you just would not think would be together. It might be colors, so it would be it's about trying to do something a little bit different, and as I say, just trying to get people to look at things in a slightly different way and notice things, and especially today, because there's a lot of things that people don't notice which they need to.
How had you studied art before you went to Newlyn, or so I'm just wondering what you were producing artistically before Newlyn, and how it changed over the course of that year year or 2 years that you were studying there, whether you started as an artist, or how your journey, what it was up to that point, what it was during that point, how it evolved.
Okay, yeah, good question. So I suppose I've always known I wanted to do something creatively. It's just been in my blood, I was introduced to photography at a really early age. My uncle was the treasurer for the Royal Photographic Society, and he was real old school. I mean, so he had a dark room. He lived in Kent, and I remember going to visit him, and took me, showed me his dark room, and it was like an apothecary of, he was really into toning, selenium toning, and all that kind of thing, and he'd written lots of books on it, and he was he was quite a celebrated toner. So anyway, so he in dark room,
I didn't know that was a thing until right now. Yeah,
it's a celebrated toner. So he should have been called Tony, shouldn't he? But he wasn't. He was called Tom.
Tony for short.
So he introduced me to this extraordinary, these trays where you develop things and the image appeared, and and all these sort of wonderful things that he was doing with changing imagery, and yeah, that got me into photography, and I've always loved photography since then. But that was very early on, and then I suppose I've always known I wanted to do something creatively. I went to art school for 4 years, but that was doing graphic design and typography.
Typography, that's an unusual one, isn't it?
Yeah, graphic design and typography. Yeah, to be traditionally trained, I suppose, in typography is, yeah. I mean, it goes hand in hand with graphics, graphic design. So it was quite a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
And I learned a lot about that. About type and fonts and using those. And then, so from art school, I kind of then just got into the commercial world, but I always kind of stayed a little bit connected with art. But it was only really going back to Newlyn, I mean, I've taken a lot of photography and done things, but it was only really going to Newlyn that kind of really started me to get back to my art in a serious way. And then I started to revisit all the things that I'd done at art school, and started to look at what was important to me, and build up a body of work to then approach Newlyn and then get onto their mentoring course. So that's kind of how that happened.
And so
then,
you know what you wanted to do when you applied and when you got to, so you arrived at Newlyn with a body of work, and then
yes.
Did it change during that year, or did you just keep building, really?
Yeah, I kind of, I sort of know what I want to do, and that's good and bad, you know, because in some ways it's quite restrictive, because I'm kind of on a path, and I kind of know where I'm going. But I think what Jesse and some of the others taught me is that, you know, you can actually get off that path and try some other things, you know, so it allowed me to be more experimental, and try things that I wouldn't have done if I was just on my own doing stuff. So it allowed me to bring in other elements into my work and really understand the importance of paint, and I suppose almost like the timeless quality that paint brings to a piece of work. You know, so if you've got an image or a photograph, then that's fine. You know, some people work with imagery and some people are brilliant with it. And, you know, but I think if you can find a way of combining two things, and combining paint and photography is not easy. You know, it's
no, I'm curious to know how you do that.
yeah. Well, it's not easy. So it's, you know, well, typically I work on a diptych, so there'll be two elements, so that they're quite separate. But sometimes I will work on the image as well, and I'll work on, you know, I'll use pigments and try and sympathetically layer an image or a photograph in some way that it doesn't just look like you've painted on top of it. So it has a bit more integration to it.
So how do you actually do that with the photograph? So you take a photograph, and then how do you introduce paint to it?
Okay, well, it's absolutely critical what it's printed on.
Yeah.
So, you know, so I will print on. So if you take Arches Aquarelle, for example, you know, the image may be printed on that, you know, which has got a fantastic paint surface to it. So I would work on the surface with the image below it, or sometimes I'll treat the surface and then print on top of that. So it depends what we do, or which way it's done. It might be on a wood surface, it might be on aluminium. So there's a lot of experimenting with it, because it, you know, with a photograph, I mean, these days you can print on pretty much anything. You know, you can print literally on anything. You know, there are printers out there that will allow you to do that. You can even print. You can even, I mean, on some of like Maria Riven's work, I don't know if you know her work, with she does these extraordinary portraits of like Audrey Hepburn and people like that, and then she puts like a headdress on them of like extraordinary detailed things. It's that kind of thing, you know. So but it starts with an image, and you can even put do they call them lenticulars, or what is it? You can actually put a hologram, like a TV hologram, into the image. Now you can actually print a hologram on it. It's, you know, there's so many different things you can do.
So can I just ask you, where do you get these things? Where do you get your printing done? Have you got this at home, or was it at Newlyn?
No, because I print quite large. So there's a company near Brighton that I use, and they work with a lot of fine artists, and they have some fantastic equipment there. You know, so they're able to print on a huge variety of surfaces. So it depends. I mean, I like to keep things really simple. You know, for me, just having an image, you know, with a painted so a photograph with a painted image or something next to it, so the two go together really simply. That's the best for me, because that, like less is always more. So I like to keep it, and then keep it simple and let the viewer make up their own mind what they feel about it. So
you've got some very strong motifs in your work. Where, like the Navajo and space age, where do those? What's the background to those for you? There's quite a lot of American or pop culture inspired themes, I thought, looking at your website. Is that right?
That's right. Yeah, good. Yeah. So
have they always been themes for you, or?
Yeah, I mean, I just love working with imagery. So I was brought up with the Apollo space missions, so watching them on TV, on grainy black and white television, which is fantastic, to watch those sort of things. They're totally ethereal and literally out of this world. I literally remember sitting there in my mum and dad's guest house and watching the moon landing. Wow. And listening to Simon and Garfunkel in the background, I think it was, on my reel-to-reel tape recorder. So those sort of images are very, very powerful for me, and so I really connect with that whole sort of space time, but much more so then, that whole sort of analog, that kind of noise and analog and that sort of deep sort of set feeling that you get from that, whereas today, of course, digital is super clean and everything's as sharp as it can possibly be, and again, there's a really interesting dynamic there for me where, many things, digital is improving a lot of things, but it's also making a lot of things far worse, so it's about trying to understand, and look at things again in a different way. That you improve things, you make them sharper, but actually, are they improved? Where are you taking this? Where are you going with things? And I think so. That was that. The Native Indian work, the petroglyphs and rock art symbols are from my time out in America. And again, just really connecting with that kind of art and with with the Native Indian, their approach to their ethos and their lives as they were originally anyway, just loving their creativity and how everything is connected.
So did you spend much time with the Navajo or other?
I've spent some time. I was actually when I worked out in California, my boss was a Native Indian, so he was so he introduced me to a lot of that, a lot of their culture and their art, and so that was an important part of me getting involved with that side of things. And then I think the other thing we started the conversation about looking beneath, looking deeper with things. I think if I see an image, I'm always looking around the periphery. It's like when I look at a postcard or something. It's like voyeurism, I suppose. But you're looking around the edge. You're looking for something that probably no one else has seen in that image. Because I want to do something with that. I don't, if there's a picture of like a postcard of a donkey on the seafront, I won't be looking at the donkey. I'll be looking at the people in the background and trying to see what they're doing, and and then really zooming in on that and trying to make something take something that's relatively unseen or totally unnoticed and bringing that into the foreground.
So it's something already existing in the photo that you can see that isn't the main subject. rather than something that you can't see that exists outside the focus of the postcard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's looking for, it's going a bit deeper into things. It's looking for things that probably go unnoticed, and trying to give them a voice, give them their 15 seconds of fame or whatever it is.
Have you ever considered being a writer?
Wow, that's an interesting question. I do write, but I write for work. So I write headlines and copy, and I enjoy doing that. But and I kind of write my stuff around that, but I've never written for the love of it, I suppose.
I'm interested in trying to give something a voice. So with the people that you've spent time with, the native people, have you incorporated any of their art directly into your finished pieces? Have you tried to give people a voice in a literal sense, or is it something that you're interested in? You're the broadcaster trying to give the voice.
Yeah, I suppose not directly. If you consider the petroglyphs and the symbols that they made many years ago to be their art, then of course yes, I do bring those into my art and kind of repurpose them. But no, not directly. No. But yeah, again, using ancient symbols. I mean, a lot of these symbols, which they were done, a long time ago, and many of the meanings have gone now, and I think that, there's some probably, some very powerful messages in there. You can see in some of the symbols. There's some things and messages there that we need to go back to, and because the native Indians, they lived at one with the earth. They just took what they wanted to survive, and that's probably quite a good message these days.
What was the main way that your art developed, do you think, during that time at Newlyn?
Okay. I think. Okay, so it developed. It gave me, I suppose, it gave me the validation and the ability to be more free and experiment. I hadn't done any work on my space series or anything like that, so that kind of really came out of Newlyn, and I think it just came from. I did a tiny little collage of an Indian, and I cut him in half, and I stuck him together with a spaceman, and it's probably on my website somewhere. It's a little collage, just literally two things coming together, and it just kind of worked, and the whole space series just came from that, because it just kind of inspired me, and I just thought, oh wow, yeah, I can connect to that. And working with Jesse again. Jesse is a big, he's quite a significant mentor for me, and and he really encouraged me to develop my work in a particular way, and using the diptych and using the panels of colour, which is it's when you're working on your own, as it's hard. It's hard to make some decisions. You don't know if you're doing the right thing. It's if you're creative, you're always in turmoil. You never really know if you're there or you're not. And or if it's good or it's bad.
The type of turmoil, it seems to me, which no one else cares about at all, but you care about it enormously. So it's really nice to have some help with it.
Yeah, Yeah, you're right. Yeah, it's there's a constant struggle going on there, which is part of the process. It's and on the mentoring course, there were a lot of tears and a lot of people who were upset, with with what was happening and being said, but it's part of the process. It's the agony and the ecstasy, I suppose. Yeah, and having those little fragments. Why? I think if you're creative, you naturally live on that wire. I think you do. Because you feel things. You feel things much deeper, and yeah, it just goes. It comes with the package. You have to. The self-doubt and and the elation when you get something right, it's yin and yang, isn't it? I mean,
So how do you know, have you learned to recognize when you're getting something right? How does it feel?
Yeah, it feels great. Yeah. Yeah.
That's a nice
it feels
answer,
amazing.
yeah.
It feels amazing, actually. That feeling has never gone away. It's something that happens very, very occasionally. And I liken it to when I was doing photography, and you go out and you take your roll of 36 shots on your 35mm camera, and you print your contact sheet, and then on one of those images you might see something, and just out of those 36 shots you think, yeah, I think I've got something there. And then you develop it and blow it up, and something's happening there, something really exciting. And it's that kind of feeling. It's similar if you paint something, you put two things together, and that's the creativity, isn't it? It's about you as a person recognizing that, what you would see, what I would see, what someone else would see. We would all get turned on by different things, and recognize different things, and that's what's so great about it. I suppose it is something you can't really quantify.
And do you think it's harder to do that now with so many influences from everywhere, like Instagram and looking at other people's work all the time? How do you manage to keep focused and develop your own style? I was blown away when I looked at your work, I have to admit, because we'd had a chat, hadn't we? And I don't know what I was expecting, but I really wasn't expecting what I saw on the website. And I just opened it up and just, woo, wow. And I called, John, my partner, over and said, come and have a look at this. It's really exciting. It's really it's got a real wow factor, I think.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
okay.
A real wow factor to it. So,
yeah. And what you've asked is a really good question. So how do you stay focused? It's really, really hard. You're bombarded the whole time now. Everything is out there. I deliberately don't post too much at any one time, because, out there on the ether, because, I just don't want people to see it all the time, So, it's I don't know how many images we see every day, but these days it's huge. It's absolutely huge, and the choices, and if you're not disciplined, it's so easy to get totally swamped, with what's going on, and you lose your focus. You think, oh, someone else is doing this, or there's just too many things coming at you. So I have to take myself back to really almost to my art school days, and my foundation, and say, right, okay, what is important to me? What really do I want to do? And then how can I keep, again, simplifying it, less is more. So, it almost seems like the more you put in and the more influence that you have, it takes it away from your soul, I suppose, and what you're trying to do with your work, because Newlyn, that I probably said this to you before, that what they do, they don't they don't just want you to paint pretty pictures of,
No.
you know, countryside and stuff like that, because they've seen it all before. You know, Jess has seen all that. You know, he wants to know what's inside you. You know, what is it that you bring that really is about you, you know, and because it is from your soul, then it will be unique, you know, it will be something, it's genuine, and, you know, it means something to you, but because it means so much and it is genuine, it should touch other people as well. And it's very, very hard to do that. You know, it's you know, I don't even know if I've done that yet. I mean,
Well, I was going to ask you, do you feel that you've got there?
No, I probably don't. I feel I'm on a journey with it. You know, I've worked with some nice imagery, and I realise, you know, I produce some work which, you know, which other people fortunately like, and I've sold pieces and so on. You know, and I've exhibited, so, which is great, but I don't feel I'm there at all yet. I feel I'm on a journey, and I've got a way to go, which is great, you know. So I may never get there.
Ever feel like you've got there?
Well, me probably. I'm not someone who probably will ever feel like that,
Yeah.
but I do, you know, I do feel okay. I do actually stop and look at what I've done, and I can think, yeah, okay, that was okay, that's not so good, you know, like we all do, you know. My starting point will, yeah, something will inspire me in some form. So, you know, it could be, it might be a word, you know, it could start with a word or anything. And I suppose that's what's so great about it, is that, you know, you can, the starting point can be anything. But what I like to do is I don't just tend to just produce one piece of work. I like to work in a series. So because I like to really explore and go deeper with things. Yeah. You know, I've done a few other art fairs. Yeah. I don't know if you know art fairs. Yeah. So
I've been I've exhibited through galleries in the affordable ones, and the Fresh Art Fair, which I think is not an affordable one.
Yeah.
But not myself. I've not done the hard graft.
Well, the other art fair, you know, that's great because that's artists, so you don't have to have a gallery. So I did New York, which was great. It was a real experience. We all headed off to New York, which was really good fun.
I thought, did they like your work in New York?
Yeah, it went down really well.
I thought it
was a fantastic experience.
Yeah.
It was the first one I did, and it was hugely expensive. I shipped it all out in a massive crate. It just arrived at the stand, and all arrived safely. It was really easy, and it was held in Brooklyn. It was a really great venue.
That sounds really exciting.
It was really, really great. Yeah, and everyone went out, and you know, we spent a few days over there.
What a brilliant experience! Yeah.
Yeah, we sold some pieces, and you know, there's a great camaraderie. You know, you're there with other artists around you, so it's a really nice experience. So I've done one in New York, and I've done two in London. Every time I do one, I say I'll never do it again because it's such hard work. Because you you're putting up your own show. But it does get you exposed, and it does. People do get to know you on those circuits. You know, it's like anything. It's like putting an advert out. You know, people don't really know. People have seen it a few times, and you know, so I think, you know, that's another way of getting your name out there. And some artists just do those. They literally go around the world doing other art fairs. Wow. You know, and they make money doing it. You've got to have a mix. You know, it's great to have a gallery, but you also need the flexibility to do your own shows or piggyback on something else or sell online or whatever you want to do.
Right. Well, I thought I'd end with some shorts. So these were designed as one-word answers. Nobody has, as far as I recall, actually started one word so far, but there's always a first time.
Okay, great. Sounds interesting. Okay, so I've got to answer with one word, yeah?
Well, that's the idea, but you don't have to if you need more.
Okay. All right, well, let's try.
Any typeface. Yeah. Okay. Right. So what's your favorite color?
Blue.
Which type of blue?
The darkest blue you can get. So the darkest indigo / Prussian. Yeah, darker the better. Really intense.
Okay.
From a deep blue sea.
So a bit like going down into the ocean just at the twilight zone.
Yeah, it would be, yeah. Well, I was born by the sea and it's definitely in my blood. So, yeah, there's something about that, either in the sky and the sea. This is more than one word, but yeah, that colour always does it for me.
Which is most important to you, colour, line, or design?
Oh, wow. I should really say design because I'm a graphic designer, but it's colour. I think it's colour. If I had to choose one,
yeah,
it's hard to choose one, but I would say colour because I think that is what you see first, and it can be incredibly intense. And, you know, it can make or break whatever the design is or whatever the line is. So I would say colour.
Okay. Favourite medium to work in? I know you're a photographer, but...
It would have to be photography. Yeah.
And I don't know much about photography at that level, but so within photography, how would you...
No, that's wrong. Yeah, so photography, it would be imagery. Yeah, so it could be any imagery. I suppose it's having the starting point of an image. So in terms of medium, it would be, yeah, it's really hard. An image, yeah, probably an image, but an image that I would then work on.
And did you tell me this earlier? Is it acrylics that you would use? What paint do you put on?
It depends. So pigments.
Pure pigments?
Yeah. And acrylic I work with, and gouache I'll work with as well.
So if you put a pure pigment onto a photograph, what happens?
Well, you have to mix it with something.
So what do you mix it with? Are these trade secrets?
Well, so yeah, it's like with if you talk to anyone at Newlyn, I did this. I was sort of asking all these questions, and none of the artists will actually tell you. Like really protective of it, but it's fine. I mean, I will use
something to develop yourself. Then is it? I was just wondering whether it's something that's
I mean,
established thing or
it's some sort of medium, I suppose. So so it'll be mixed with a medium. So you're producing something which will work on the photograph and on the surface that you're working on. That'd be quite different, of course, whether it's aluminium or wood or ashes, you know, whatever it is. So it would be quite different. But yeah, the pigment. I mean, sometimes I will work with just the pigment, and you know, on a wet surface, that can work.
And so, do you rub that in? How do you actually get the pigment to get coverage onto the?
Okay. So, wow, it can be very different. So sometimes it's just literally, sweep across. If it's a wood surface or aluminium, sometimes it's put on and then it's sandpapered on. So I'll sandpaper over the top. That's the experimental part, I suppose, and that's where, you know, where I my paints, I generally paint, you know, in pure paint and loads of layers, so you get a really, really intense color. almost so they look screen printed.
Yeah.
And then they're matched up against much more, you know, the ethereal sort of chaotic side. So you get this dynamic of, you know, what might be a, you know, like a, you know, I suppose an image of a spaceman which has got loads of noise all over it, you know, and you can almost not see the spaceman, you know, because of the image is degraded so much, and that's pitched up against a pure, absolutely pure piece of, you know, paint that's you know, just creating that dynamic, and you have to try and make that work somehow, you know, because it very often it doesn't work, but you know, the surface that you work on, you know, when you're working on the image, you know, it could be, you know, I might have to work on that for quite a while. It might have to be a bit like Jesse. You know, Jesse does this all the time. Use copper. You know, it's like puts on the paint, takes it all off. You know, as he says, it's not about, for him, it's about what you take off, not what you put on. So, yes.
Favorite tool? So painting or photographic tool?
I know what it is. It's my 100mm macro lens that I use for my photography, and I use it exclusively for all the photography that I do. It's a 100mm macro lens. It just takes me closer to the image, and it's just got a beautiful soft quality to the backgrounds. It's fantastic. Highly recommend it.
What do you like your end result to be printed onto or shown on? Canvas, panel, or paper?
I've used paper a lot. I'm moving more into wood panel now, because I like the way it works together, and it's not framed and it's not put under glass.
Okay. How do you feel when you paint?
I feel like it's where I should be. Restless. I don't feel relaxed.
If you weren't an artist or anything artistic, what would you be?
A chef or a gardener.
Might we see you on MasterChef one year?
I don't think so.
Okay. Best thing about being an artist?
The best thing, okay. Oh gosh. Well, being able to express what's in you, getting that out somehow. You know, I mean, it's a privilege to be able to be creative.
And lastly, if somebody saw your work in 100 years' time, is there any aspect of you that you might hope that they can pick up on?
That if you think beyond the obvious, you can actually put things together that would seem like they shouldn't be together, and they do actually work. So probably that, and maybe it would be great if they look back in 100 years and they saw some of my symbolism, and they said, "Man, that guy, he started the sustainability revolution." we all started. Yeah. Oh, that guy Gordon, he just started it. You know, he got people thinking about living off the land again. But yeah, so
although I said that was lastly, have you always been interested in images ever since you were very small?
Oh, that is a good question. Yeah, subconsciously, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I was drawing. I always loved books. If I had pocket money, I'd go out and buy a book. You know, but not to read, because I don't really like reading.
Okay.
But a book with pictures.
Well, I still think there should be more books with pictures for grown-ups, but that's why I like art books, really.
Me too. Yeah, I'm a sucker for books, I'm afraid. But yeah, and that's a really good question. I've never even thought about that. But yeah, I think imagery has been, yeah, it's always been really important.
Is there anything you want to add? And I was just wondering, where can people see your work?
Okay. No, I think that was a really good interview. Thank you. I enjoyed that. I think
I didn't quite keep it to 3 minutes, but it's not too long.
definitely.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Right.
So you want to do a quick interview, yeah?
Well, yeah, it helps with my editing if it's quite quick. So.